I want to start off by acknowledging that this morning, the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office announced that more than 5 million Americans can lose their health care because of the Medicaid cuts being pushed by Republican members of Congress. So, of course, Republicans on the Government Efficiency Committee are holding an emergency hearing on semi-pro fencing. Not fences like the kind that goes around a building, but like the sport with the swords. And I've knocked on thousands of doors and talked to thousands of Republican, Independent, and Democratic voters in my career. And not a single time has someone flung open their door and said, "Thank God you're here, Congressman. I want to ask you about transgender people fencing." It's just never happened. I've never even met a fencer before. I've just seen it on The Parent Trap. I'm sure it's a great sport, but what the hell are we doing here? Seriously, we're here because Chairwoman Marjorie Taylor Greene thinks that if she picks on vulnerable people, like trans folks, she can avoid having a discussion about the allegations of insider trading against her. She thinks that she can distract from the fact that Trump and MAGA Republicans are raising your costs every single day, suppressing your wages every single day, stealing your taxpayer dollars every single day, and threatening your health care. That's the reason we're at this crazy hearing today. Here we are in a subcommittee supposedly about government efficiency, spending hours upon hours trashing trans people and talking about trans folks in sports. There's more members on this committee than there are trans people in all of college sports. Of the 500,000 student athletes in America, about 10 of them are trans. Not 10,000, 10. In Olympics, there are even fewer. So in my opinion, sports leagues will do a much better job than politicians up here on this committee coming up with fair and thoughtful ways of handling who does and who does not qualify for which sports. But I think that instead of picking on LGBT people, politicians in this country should be singularly focused on improving the economy for every single working American. That's my crazy idea. Ms. Goss-Graves, Republicans have called an emergency hearing on trans athletes in the sport of fencing today. Can you tell me, how many college fencers are there total in the entire United States?
I think about 1,000.
Compare that to, do you know how many people rely on Medicaid in this country?
That's more like 80 million.
And Social Security?
That's more like 70 million.
So 80 million people rely on Medicaid, 70 million people on Social Security. We're talking about 1,000 college fencers, period. How many hearings do you think this committee has held on Elon Musk pushing Social Security to the brink of collapse?
Oh my God.
I don't think any.
0 hearings. How many hearings have we had about the millions of Americans who could lose Medicaid because of the cuts Republicans are pushing today?
Well, 0.
That is correct. 0 hearings on these issues that impact us all. Republicans have called hearing after hearing obsessed with trans folks in sports, which of course only affects a tiny sliver of Americans, but no hearings on Medicaid, no hearings on Social Security, no hearings on raising wages and lowering costs. So if you're sitting at home watching, you need to know the goal of this hearing is for Republicans to distract you from their own lies, their own corruption, and their own failure. The goal of this hearing is to make sure that Fox News has something to talk about other than Elon Musk getting billions of dollars a year in government contracts while cutting services for you. The goal of this hearing is to make sure that Fox News has something else to talk about other than Chairwoman Marjorie Taylor Greene's alleged insider trading. It's a sick reality right now in American politics that right-wing Republican officials think that picking on trans people is how they'll earn more votes and raise more money. They pick on Americans that are already facing discrimination and violence, and they're making those challenges worse. They're trying to pull the oldest trick in the book. Next time you go vote, ask yourself if these second-rate schoolyard bullies are looking out for you or if they're scammers just like the man that holds their leash.
The gentleman's time has expired. It's important to point out that Democrat members today are not asking the two young ladies that are here representing their sports, and this is what the hearing is about today. I now recognize Chairman Comer from Kentucky.
Chairwoman Green, you and my Republican colleagues have called this hearing that is all about cutting off money to nonprofits for things that are, quote, contrary to the national interest. What we've heard here is my Republican colleagues going after nuns and priests that feed immigrants, going after nonprofits that do scary things like support our queer youth. It is astounding to me. But we do have one nonprofit leader here, Mr. Krikorian. Mr. Krikorian, you're the director of the Center for Immigration Studies, correct?
Yes.
And according to your organization's website, you do receive taxpayer funding or have from the Department of Justice and the Census Bureau.
Yeah, we did research contracts for them many years ago.
Got it. And so you do have a taxpayer-funded nonprofit, and your nonprofit, as we've discussed in committee before, has shared articles from Kevin McDonald, whose work argues that Jewish people, alleged by him, are genetically driven to destroy Western societies. Is that correct?
We distributed no such article.
But you did distribute work from this anti-Semite, correct?
We distributed work all across the spectrum,
Right, from
New
his-
York
from this
Times
anti-Semite
to anyone
comment.
else.
Got
yes.
it, okay. Your organization has also circulated an article by Holocaust denier John Friend. Is that correct? We said last time we were in a hearing that yes, you have.
We've distributed no articles about Holocaust denial, obviously. It has
But you
nothing to
have
do
from
with us.
Holocaust denier John Friend?
I don't know, but I assume so, yeah.
Your website right here does
Okay.
talk about that.
Yeah.
So I have a yes or no question. Is promoting the work of Holocaust deniers and anti-Semites contrary to the national interest?
Promoting Holocaust denial and what have you is contrary to the national interest. That's why we haven't done it.
But you have promoted the work of Holocaust deniers. Like John Friend.
There were several examples. We've also promoted the work of Open Borders people in that effort to present a broad range of views. Absolutely. And we don't endorse one way or the other.
So you have promoted the work of Holocaust deniers, but have you received anything from DOJ asking whether they want to cut your funding? Have Republicans called you in to ask about your nonprofit and said, hey, we don't like that you've promoted the work of Holocaust deniers? Have you had any funding cut by DOJ or by this committee?
We don't get any funding to be cut.
But you have received Department of Justice funding. And
Decades
Census Bureau.
ago, yes, yeah.
And so, look, let me just be real clear here. This hearing is not about taking on nonprofits that are going, quote, against the national interest or who are, quote, extreme. This is all about trying to shut down nonprofits who might share political views that are different from that of the President of the United States. This hearing, they're going after organizations they call radical because they're kind to kids that are having trouble in school, kind to kids that are trying to figure out who they are in the world. They're going after nonprofits, and you, sir, and your nonprofit are saying that the radical people are the priests and nuns that feed the hungry, the nonprofit organizations that, yeah, give shelter to immigrants, that I understand your Center of Immigration Studies does not like immigration very much. But let me tell you, the radical folks aren't the folks out there doing good. The radical folks that you might disagree with, their version of the good, but the radical folks are the people that in your face come to this committee hearing and are sharing through their websites, through their listservs, articles by Holocaust deniers. And you're saying, yeah, we didn't share the Holocaust denying articles, but we shared some of his other stuff. I'll make my last point here clear. I represent Texas. I have long-standing ties to the city of El Paso, where in 2019, 23 people were murdered at a Walmart. The murderer said, quote, it was based on the Hispanic invasion of Texas. And after the shooting, Mr. Krikorian, you said that the manifesto was, quote, remarkably well written. Can you tell us which part of his manifesto was remarkably well written?
What I meant by that was that it seemed improbable for a nutcase like that to have written something that was relatively, at least grammatically correct. That was my point.
Look, folks here on this committee are trying to shut down nonprofits because they disagree with them. You're a nonprofit, and you, sir, saying that the El Paso shooter had a manifesto that's
The
remarkably
gentleman's
well-written,
time has
that is
expired.
extreme,
The
and
gentleman's-
what goes around comes around.
The
And it's just
gentleman's
important-
time has expired.
Chairwoman,
I
okay.
now recognize Mr. Jack from Georgia for 5
Chairwoman,
minutes.
I just want to make clear
Thank you,
that what
Madam
goes
Chair.
around can come
and
around.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
The form of the resolution is as follows. House Resolution 713, censuring Representative Ilhan Omar of Minnesota and removing her from the Committee on Education and Workforce and the Committee on the Budget. One day after the assassination of Charlie Kirk, Representative Ilhan Omar gave an interview on Zateo's town hall with Mehdi Hassan in which she smeared Charlie Kirk and implied he was to blame for his own murder. Whereas on September 12, 2025, 2 days after the assassination of Charlie Kirk, Representative Ilhan Omar reposted a video on X, formerly known as Twitter, which disparaged the character of Charlie Kirk and those mourning his death. Whereas the video Representative Ilhan Omar reposted on X states Charlie Kirk is dead, and before the body got cold, the far right propped his corpse up as a cudgel for their holy war. Whereas the video Representative Ilhan Omar reposted on X further states, don't be fooled. These people don't give a single shit about Charlie Kirk. They are just using his death to further their Christo-fascist agenda. Whereas the video Representative Ilhan Omar reposted on X further states Charlie Kirk was a reprehensible human being. He enacted his political agenda by preying on weak-minded people. He took complex socioeconomic issues and simplified them by pointing fingers at outgroups, demonizing those groups, and sicking his massive following on them.
Pursuant to Clause 2A1 of Rule 9, I rise to give notice of my intention to raise a question of the privileges of the House. The form of the resolution is as follows. A resolution censuring Representative Corey Mills. Whereas Representative Corey Mills has on several occasions conducted himself in a manner that reflects discredit upon this House of Representatives. Whereas on February 19, 2025, Washington, D.C. Metropolitan Police officers were called to resolve a private matter at Representative Corey Mills' residence, where officers were called to the 1300 block of Maryland Avenue Southwest around 1:15 p.m. for a report of an assault. Whereas police reports obtained by NBC4 Washington confirmed that the Washington, D.C. Police Department was investigating Representative Corey Mills for an alleged assault on a 27-year-old woman that took place on February 19, 2025, at the residence of Representative Corey Mills. Whereas the first police report provided to NBC4 Washington by a source and confirmed by a second source familiar with the investigation said that the 27-year-old woman accused her significant other for over a year of having grabbed her, shoved her, and pushed her out of the door, and also said that the woman involved showed the officer, quote, bruises on her arm which appeared fresh, end quote. Whereas NBC4 Washington also reported that the Metropolitan Police Department identified Representative Corey Mills as the significant other of the alleged victim of assault, who was not the wife of Representative Corey Mills, and that the alleged victim, quote, let officers hear Subject 1, now identified by MPD as Mr. Mills, instruct her to lie about the origin of her bruises. Eventually, Subject 1, who we now know is Representative Corey Mills, made contact with police and admitted the situation escalated from verbal to physical, but it was severe enough to create bruising, end quote. Whereas on February 21st, 2025, the Washington Post also confirmed 2 D.C. police officials said that the alleged victim of the assault initially told 911 and police that she had been assaulted, and that officers said she also had what seemed to be visible injuries, and that while a supervisor initially classified the offense internally as family disturbance, police commanders later learned of the incident, reviewed the reports and body camera footage, and reclassified the case as domestic violence assault. Whereas on February 21, 2025, NBC4 Washington also reported that the Metropolitan Police Department determined that the probable cause to arrest Representative Corey Mills for misdemeanor assault existed and sent an arrest warrant for Representative Corey Mills to the United States Attorney's Office for the District of Columbia. However, then acting United States Attorney for the District of Columbia, Ed Martin, refused to sign the arrest warrant for Representative Corey Mills and instead returned the case to the police department for further investigation. Whereas on July 14, 2025, a different former romantic partner of Representative Corey Mills, who was apparently in a relationship with Representative Mills from November 2021 to February 2025, reported to the authorities in Florida that Representative Mills threatened to release nude images and other intimate videos of her and threatened to harm her future romantic partners in retaliation for her decision to end a relationship with Representative Mills after seeing the public reports described above concerning the alleged February 2025 physical assault. Whereas in August 2024, the Office of Congressional Conduct adopted and transmitted to the Committee on Ethics of the House of Representatives a report indicating that there was substantial reason to believe that Representative Corey Mills may have omitted or misrepresented required information in his financial disclosure statements, accepted excessive contributions to his campaign committee in the form of personal loans and contributions that may not have derived from Representative Corey Mills' personal funds, entered into, held, or enjoyed contracts with federal agencies while he was a member of Congress, and may have accepted through his campaign committee in-kind contributions or other contributions not lawfully made. Whereas individuals who served Representative Corey Mills have called into question the veracity of the account of events which formed the basis of a recommendation that Representative Corey Mills receive an award of Bronze Star bestowed in 2021 for his service under enemy fire in Iraq in 2003. Whereas in August 2024, Representative Mills provided the Daytona Beach News with documents purporting to prove that he earned a Bronze Star for heroism, including a Department of the Army Form 638, recommending Representative Mills for a Bronze Star, and which includes a signature from then Army Brigade Commander Arnold N. Gordon Bray. However, retired Brigadier General Bray told the Daytona Beach News Journal in August of 2024 that he did not sign a Bronze Star recommendation for Congressman Corey Mills. Whereas 5 people who served with Representative Corey Mills, including 2 men who were reported as having been personally saved by Representative Mills at great risk to his own life as a basis for his recommendation for his Bronze Star in the Department of the Army Form 638, those 2 men disputed that Representative Corey Mills was involved in their rescue or provided life-saving care. Whereas 1 private first class cited as having been involved in one of the listed achievements on Representative Corey Mills' Army Form 638, recommending him for a Bronze Star, denied that Representative Corey Mills provided him any aid and also denied that his injuries were life-threatening. Whereas 1 sergeant cited as having been involved in one of the listed achievements on Representative Corey Mills' Army Form 638, recommending him for a Bronze Star, called the account a, quote, fabrication, and claimed that he, quote, was not in any claims that Corey Mills makes, not involved in any claims that Corey Mills makes about me. I'll restate that, Mr. Speaker. Whereas 1 sergeant cited as having been involved in one of the listed achievements on Representative Corey Mills' Army Form 638, recommending him for a Bronze Star, called the account a, quote, fabrication, and claimed that he, quote, was not involved in any claims that Corey Mills makes about me, end quote. And whereas despite the numerous available contradictions of the accounts forming the basis of the recommendation for his Bronze Star, Representative Corey Mills described the legitimate factual disputes raised by individuals he purportedly served with and rescued as, quote, slander and defamation in a statement to the Daytona Beach News Journal. Now, therefore, be it resolved that 1, Representative Corey Mills be censured, 2, Representative Corey Mills forthwith present himself in the well of the House of Representatives for the pronouncement of the censure, and 3, Representative Corey Mills be censured with a public reading of this resolution by the Speaker. I yield back.
Gentleman yields under Rule 9 a resolution offered from the floor by a member other than the majority leader or the minority leader as a question of the privileges of the House has immediate precedence only at a time designated by the chair within 2 legislative days after the resolution is properly noticed. Pending that designation, the form of the resolution noticed by the gentleman from Texas will appear in the record at this point. The chair will not, at this point, determine whether the resolution constitutes a question of privilege. That determination will be made at the time designated for consideration of the resolution.
Today, Republicans have called this DOGE hearing called Locking in the DOGE Cuts, Ending Waste, Fraud, and Abuse for Good. And I'm deeply concerned about the cuts that DOGE has made to services for our veterans. So I want to ask our pro-DOGE witnesses today some questions about those cuts. So, Mr. Lips, ProPublica reported that DOGE cuts have stalled life-saving clinical trials for our veterans with head and neck cancer, otherwise known as throat cancer. Can you tell me, are life-saving clinical trials for our veterans waste, or are they fraud, or are they abuse?
I think that's an area of government that is certainly vital, and that there's many things that can be done to improve VA services. I do not know all that DOGE has done for the VA, and I think that if there's anywhere where you could repurpose funds from these wastes that we're talking about, hundreds of billions of dollars misspent.
But if they cut the clinical trials that are helping our veterans with throat cancer, do you agree with those cuts?
No.
Thank you. Mr. Dickerson, leaked documents revealed that a VA hospital in rural Illinois was just forced to close its acute care unit to new patients due to the DOGE cuts. Can you tell me, is closing the doors of a VA acute care unit waste, or is it fraud, or is it abuse?
I don't know all the details about that particular instance, but I think that...
Would you say it's a big problem if DOGE cuts cause the closing of an acute care facility in a VA hospital?
Like I said, I think if funding that facility is a priority, we're running a $2 trillion annual
I think
deficit,
it is. I think it is a priority.
So we can repurpose funds to something if it's a priority.
So you think that if it's not a priority, that it's waste?
I think that's for Congress and the administration to work together to determine.
Exactly. It's for Congress to work on, and the administration should not be calling our acute care veterans facilities waste and closing the doors of an acute care facility without Congress. And frankly, it is a priority, I believe, of the American people to care for our veterans. Mr. Burton, Trump recently eliminated the VA Services Purchasing Program, which just last year helped more than 33,000 veterans make sure that they don't get behind on their mortgage and they don't get thrown out of their home. Can you tell me, is this program that DOGE cut, is it waste, is it fraud, or is it abuse?
That's highly fact-dependent, and I'm not that familiar with that program. I will tell you one thing
And I'll
about,
tell you, Mr. Burton, I'm familiar with it. It helped 33,000 of our veterans not lose their homes, and in my view, our veterans are not waste, fraud, or abuse, nor are they a piggy bank for billionaires' tax cuts like Elon Musk.
I doubt anyone
This is
thinks
my
that.
time, Mr. Burton.
Yep, fine.
I am deeply concerned that President Trump will take reckless action to risk sending more American troops into endless wars in the Middle East. But back at home, he's breaking the sacred promise to our veterans to care for them when and if they come back. Donald Trump has already tried to fire thousands of people at the VA, and recent reporting shows that there are plans to try to fire 80,000 people at the VA. These reckless DOGE cuts have thrown VA hospitals into chaos, and in my own district, I've gotten reports of veterans waiting months for basic services like a wheelchair. I represent San Antonio, Texas, Military City, USA, where we honor the service of our men and women in uniform. And if we want to honor our veterans, we honor it with more than just words. We take actions to care for them when they come home. We don't needlessly send people into harm's way, and we don't cut their services for when they come home. This hearing should not be holding hearings. This committee should not be holding hearings on locking in DOGE cuts. We should be holding hearings about restoring services for our veterans. And while DOGE is screwing over our veterans, the administration is also stealing from seniors. we just learned about a huge new scandal that every senior in America needs to hear about. After Trump and Musk made massive cuts to the staff at the Social Security Administration, they've scrubbed government websites of information about how long it takes to get your phone call answered. They have erased from the websites the delays that it takes to process benefit claims. They have wiped away what used to be publicly available about how long it takes to respond to a 1-800 call at the Social Security Administration. This is a cover-up. And why are they covering it up? Because wait times have exploded. A brave whistleblower just estimated that Trump's changes and Elon Musk's cuts have doubled the amount of time it takes to process a Social Security claim. Everybody needs to hear about it. Social Security is not Elon Musk's piggy bank. I yield back.
The gentleman yields. No one
Madam
loves
Chair.
veterans more than President Trump, and he's made that apparent. That's why he's working for peace
Madam Chair,
right
Madam-
now.
It's
Madam
not
Chair.
your time right now.
I'm the chair of this committee.
That's not how
I'm the chair-
parliamentary procedure works.
You're not
Madam
recognized, Ms.
Chairwoman.
Stanberry.
You're
not
recognized either. You can't just speak anytime you want.
I'm the
That's
chair of
not
this
how
committee.
That's not how it
Ms.
works,
Stansbury,
Madam.
you're not recognized.
Madam Chairwoman, that is not how You
Ms.
can
Stansbury, you're
smash
not
your
recognized.
gavel all day, but that's not how
Ms. Stansbury, you're not
parliamentarians-
recognized.
We're going to get you a Robert's
Ms.
Rules of
Stansbury,
Order
you're
and
not-
the
A
committee
point of
Ms.
order.
Stansbury,
so that
you're
you
not
can-
recognized.
so that you
Point of
can
order.
Understand parliamentary procedure.
Point of order.
Okay.
Point of order.
All right, Madam Chair, calm down. Let's move on.
Ms. Stansbury, you're not recognized. Point of order.
Madam Chair, I've
Ma-
got oh, I'm sorry, you had a point of order.
So,
Go ahead.
Madam Chair, can we decide who's going to speak first and we don't?
Absolutely. I'm the chair of this committee, and Mr.
I know
Gill,
that,
Mr.
but-
Gill from Texas
There
is
you go.
recognized for 5 minutes.
There you go.
Madam Chair, I had unanimous consent. I was trying to.
Without objection.
Thank you so much. This is from Citizens for Responsible Reporting. Doge's big illusion, the heavy cost of Trump administration's so-called cuts. I have another one. Trump administration scrambles to rehire key federal workers after Doge firing. That's 4 hours ago. I have another one. How will we know if Doge is succeeding? I have another one. How the Trump administration's Doge cuts are harming women. I have another one. How Trump's Doge cuts package could put GOP in a bind. I have more, but I'll do them later. Thank you.
Without objection, so ordered. I now recognize Mr. Gill from Texas for 5 minutes.
Secretary McMahon, thank you for joining us here today. Right now, the administration that you are a part of is pushing for a massive tax break for billionaires paid for by massive cuts to health care and food assistance for everyday Americans, including to the children that you're charged with educating. You yourself and your family, as a billionaire family of wealth of about $3.2 billion, can you share with us, do you know how much you and your family will receive in tax benefit if this Republican tax proposal gets pushed through?
No, I've not sat down and worked with my accountants on what tax. I can tell you most
You have
of the time-
a general sense?
Well, I
Is
can
it
tell you
millions or
last time
tens of millions?
taxes went through, I paid more.
And so you think that under this proposal, you will not, like the other billionaires, get millions or tens of millions of dollars in tax benefit?
I think this is kind of a ridiculous line of
No, it's
questioning.
not ridiculous, because here's what's important. The biggest bill being pushed by your administration for your average extremely wealthy person would give about a $4 million benefit. Your family's worth about $3.2 billion, so I imagine that you'd get millions of dollars in benefit from this tax bill. Does that make sense? Does that check out?
I don't know. I'd have to let you know.
Let's just
I'd ask the member
Chairman,
how this refers to
read my
education
question. I'll refer to that,
policy.
Secretary. So, okay, look, there are families watching at home from my district that could lose their health care. And they want to know why their health care would get taken away. And what it's paying for is overwhelmingly tax cuts for the wealthiest people in the country. And so what would you spend the $4 million on that you would get a benefit of at least $4 million?
Let's get to your educational line of questioning.
What would those
that we
families
deal with in this committee?
What would those families who lose their health care, who are watching, what would you spend the $4 million on that's worth more than their health care?
I'm not going to address the questions relative to me personally. I'm here as the Secretary of Education, and I'm
Okay, so
happy
as the Secretary
to
of
answer the
Education,
questions
then,
relative to education.
as the Secretary of Education, do you think, yes or no, that kids will do better off in school if they have health care and their food needs met? Yes or no?
We all do better, and children will do better in school if their health needs are met. I agree with that.
Good. And so I guess for those kids, which there's going to be hundreds of thousands or millions of kids that lose their health care, how is it okay that they're going to lose their health care so that billionaires and billionaire families, I'm not just even picking just on you, but billionaire families like your own, can get a tax break? What, if you don't even know how many millions of dollars it is you'd get, how is that worth it?
I'm not going to respond to your question.
I think the answer is because it's not worth it. It's not. If you got $3.2 billion or $5 billion or $10 billion,
going off the premise that there's going to be health care that is going to be removed from these children, I'm not sure that is a correct premise. So
every single organization that's looked at this bill knows that millions of people will lose their health care. The latest estimate is at least 11 million people and families, because you wouldn't get the enormous savings that the Republican majority on this committee is looking for unless you kick those millions of people off of their health care. So how can we educate our kids if they don't have a roof over their heads, if they can't see a doctor, if they don't have food assistance? So I'll ask you, do you think it's right for kids to not have food to eat at home before they go to class in order to make sure that a billionaire that doesn't even know how many more millions of dollars they're going to get could just get a few million more?
I want to make sure that as the Secretary of the Department of Education, that the President's plan to make school choice available to every student in our country is what we follow.
And the President's plan specifically takes money away from those kids, specifically takes food away from those families, specifically takes money and sends it to big contractors, big companies, and sends millions of dollars to billionaires like you who don't even know how many extra millions of dollars they're going to get. Before I was a member of Congress, I helped run an after-school program at a high school where many of the kids were getting driven to school in the same car that they slept in at night. They didn't have food. Many of them couldn't see a doctor. They struggled in class. We should be passing a bill to make sure that they've got a decent classroom experience, a roof over their head, food, and health care, not a bill that just funnels who knows, in your opinion, how many millions of dollars to billionaires like those in President Trump's cabinet.
Gentleman's time has expired. And now recognize the gentleman from Missouri, Mr. Under.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thank you, Secretary McMahon, so much for taking the time to come to testify before us today. First of all, I'd like to apologize for the contemptible way that my Democrat colleague treated you.
Mr. Gonzalez, you wrote the proposal to defund NPR, PBS, and public broadcasting for Project 2025. Can you answer a few questions for me? How many millions of dollars a month do taxpayers spend for Daniel Tiger to play golf?
I have no idea who
The answer is none.
Okay.
To your knowledge, has Miss Piggy ever been caught trying to funnel billions of dollars in government contracts to herself and to her companies?
That's a silly question.
Well, the answer is no. How about Arthur the Aardvark? Has he ever fired independent government watchdogs who are investigating his companies? The answer is no. Madam Chair, I'm told we're here to talk about government efficiency, but Daniel Tiger has not blown $10 million of taxpayer money to play golf with his friends, but Donald Trump has, just at the beginning of his administration. Miss Piggy hasn't been caught funneling billions of dollars in government contracts to herself, but Elon Musk has, and Arthur has not fired independent government watchdogs investigating him and his companies, but Elon Musk has fired at least 5. So once again, my Republican colleagues are dragging in a scapegoat, this time PBS and NPR, to try to distract from the fact that Trump and Musk are robbing working people. It's Sesame Street that's making things expensive. It's Mr. Rogers that's blowing taxpayer money. It's listeners like you. It's absurd. The total funding for public broadcasting is just 1/6 the amount that Elon Musk's companies make off of the government every single year. But you will not see Elon Musk being grilled by this committee. I've seen a lot, but pointing the finger at Elmo to cover for Elon Musk might be a new low for Miss Marjorie Taylor Greene's committee. I don't think Americans are buying it. Here's what I think we should be having a hearing about. After Trump and Musk took over the government, reporters noticed that the State Department was trying to funnel 400 million taxpayer dollars to Tesla. The State Department said it's an old contract, no news here, but because of a brave whistleblower and an NPR reporter, they exposed the corruption and the lies. Madam Chairwoman, if we want to look into waste, fraud, and abuse, why not look into that? Elon Musk, who's running cabinet meetings, who's running the White House, was trying to funnel money to himself. So let's stop investigating Cookie Monster and start investigating how the Trump administration lied about this and was trying to funnel money to their biggest political supporter. Maybe you're trying to defund NPR because they expose this kind of corruption. And if Republicans were serious about investigating waste, fraud, and abuse, my colleagues would admit that Big Bird is not the problem. Big tech is, big pharma is, big insurance companies are. Elon Musk's companies make billions, $3 billion a year off of government contracts. That's 6 times the money that goes to all of public broadcasting. Private insurers in Medicare Advantage overcharged taxpayers $83 billion just last year. That could pay for public broadcasting 160 times over. The $4.5 trillion tax cut for the ultra-wealthy that Republicans on this committee are trying to push through, that would pay for public broadcasting 9,000 times over. There is money to pay not just for PBS and NPR, but health care for every American, tuition-free trade school and community college for every American, to end homelessness on the streets of our cities. But my Republican colleagues don't want to talk about the corporate waste, fraud, and abuse because those corporations fund the Republicans' campaigns. So instead, they want to shut down educational programming for kids and their families, and they want to shut down local radio stations. To borrow a phrase from Sesame Street, the letter of the day is C, and it stands for corruption. Look, in my home city of Austin, Texas, we have Austin City Limits, which decade after decade after decade has chronicled American music. And if they had a bad season and it was private TV, they just would have shut it down. And we wouldn't have had decade after decade after decade of Austin City Limits. That's the amazing thing about public broadcasting. I have a lot of public housing residents in the San Antonio side of my district, and when I talk to them and they hear about what's going on in Washington, D.C., they talk about Texas Public Radio. And I just heard my colleagues talking about educational programming for kids on YouTube. That stuff is loaded with ads. And also on other forms of private television, they're selling you and your kids stuff, making people feel bad. They're trying to make a profit off of you. That's why I got sat in front of Mr. Rogers, because you got to learn something and they weren't just trying to sell you junk. It's better for our kids, it's better for our families, and we should actually be supporting public broadcasting instead of this stuff. Madam Chair, leave Elmo alone. Bring Elon in for questioning instead. Mr. Chairman, the Republicans on this committee just voted no on canceling Elon Musk contracts if he violates the law and stays past 130 days. The Republicans on this committee just voted no on Mr. Frost's amendment that would require the President of the United States to follow U.S. Supreme Court orders. At some point, we've got to have some shame on this committee. So my amendment, I would hope my Republican colleagues would vote for it, is that if a court or the federal government finds that Mr. Musk abused his power to enrich himself here over the last few months, then we would cancel his contracts. If a court finds that the richest man on earth went in, used the federal books, scraped people's data, steered contracts to himself, then we should maybe stop sending him $8 million a day and save the American taxpayer $3 billion. That's the way that not just Democrats, but conservatives, progressives, independents, all across the country want to see us save some money by saying these corporate grifters that use the government to enrich themselves, they should get cut off. And look, there's a House Republican majority today, but there could be a Democratic majority tomorrow, or at least in under 2 years. And when we are sitting on this committee, and if we get a chance to have the subpoena power and look into this and find out that Elon Musk has used his power to enrich himself, the consequences could actually be much greater than just having his contracts cut off. So I ask my Republican colleagues, I know you voted no on Mr. Frost's amendments to say the president should follow the U.S. Supreme Court. I know you just voted no on my amendment that said if Mr. Musk stays over the 130 days, he should have his contracts canceled. At a minimum, I would ask that you vote for this amendment that says if Musk breaks the laws, if he says that if we find out from a court or from the federal government that he steered these contracts to himself, then we shouldn't keep on rewarding him with billions in taxpayer dollars. That's the way we should be saving the American taxpayer money, not by kicking kids off of Medicaid or pulling school meals or firing veterans. I yield back, Mr. Chairman, and I would hope that at least one Republican member of Congress would vote to say we will hold Mr. Musk accountable if he stays past the 130-day limit. We'll hold Mr. Musk accountable if a court finds that he's been funneling money to himself. The news is out that he's seeking this multi-billion-dollar contract for Trump's Golden Dome. The word is out that he's out there messing with the FAA, trying to get his Starlink contracts at the FAA. The word is out that he tried to get a $400 million contract just recently for Tesla at the State Department, and then he got caught doing it. So, look, you may not think it's going to come out today, but it will come out eventually, and it would have been better if you voted yes to say we're going to cut off Musk's contracts if he breaks the law, if he breaks the 130-day rule, if he breaks conflicts of interest, if he keeps on using his position to enrich himself. I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Any other members seek recognition? Ms. Crockett?
Yeah, I would say that Mr. Casar has laid this out really plainly. You know, there used to be a time in which one of the mottos of the Republican Party was this idea that y'all were the party of law and order. And I really think that it's very clear that it's anything but when we have amendments that literally just say follow the law. I mean, right now, one of the things that we hear over and over and over about why it makes sense to throw people out of this country without any due process is because you are just saying that they broke the law, not that they had an opportunity to defend, not that we have any proof that they broke the law, but your word is enough to literally exile somebody and send them to a prison where they are doing God knows what. But if we have a court that has found that this man has broken the law, it would be wise, if you really believe in law and order, to say that we will not continue to enrich the richest person in the world with our tax dollars, especially when we're talking about the fact that we're trying to find savings when we know for sure that he has broken the law. So I appreciate Mr. Casar, because this isn't about partisanship. This is about right versus wrong. And honestly, it's just about good old common sense. I think that's the one thing the American people are wishing that we had right now in government, is just a little bit of common sense. And it only makes sense that we would not continue to send somebody $8 million a day or even more money than that, knowing that they literally are breaking the laws the laws that we wrote. I'll yield.
Does any other member seek recognition? Seeing none, the question is now on the Casar amendment. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed signify by saying no. No. In the opinion of the chair, the noes have it, and the amendment is not agreed to.
I'd ask for a recorded vote.
Recorded vote is ordered. As previously announced, further proceedings on the question will be postponed.